Good evening, folks. We're going to look at volume of cylinders, and this is 7-1. We're going to jump right into the notes here. The volume is the amount of three-dimensional space that is occupied by an object. Volume can also be referred to as capacity. So if you've ever gone with your parents to buy a new dishwasher or a washing machine or a refrigerator, a lot of times they give you the dimensions as its capacity, and that's what they're talking about is volume. Okay, volume is three-dimensional because you are multiplying three different dimensions. Okay, so hopefully that makes sense. To find the volume of a cylinder, you're going to multiply the area of the base by the height of the cylinder. Okay, so sometimes you'll see on reference sheets that it's written as V equals capital B times H. I call that big B. And what that really means is the area of the base. It's not the base itself, it's the area of the base. So when we're looking at V, what does that letter represent, that variable represent? It represents the volume, and in this case, today's lesson, it's going to represent the volume of a cylinder. And big B, like I said above, is the area of the base. And in our case today, the base of cylinders is a circle. Okay, and H represents height of the cylinder. So the base of a cylinder is always going to be a circle. Okay, so if you look at the picture up above, you've got the coins, and coins make a circle. So to find the area of the base, you need to use that formula, pi r squared. Or in your calculator, you can do it as pi times r times r. Okay. You'll always have instructions that tell you what to use for pi. If you don't, that means that you can use anything. You can use 3.14 for pi, you can use the pi button on your calculator, you can even use 22/7. But if it explicitly tells you what to use for pi, you must use that. Before we get into these basic diagrams down here and finding cylinders, I want to repeat something that I said last week. The main thing with these is you've got to be able to tell the difference between diameter and radius of a circle. So I told everybody in my classes anyway to go back to when you were in elementary school and when you were learning how to write your letters, a lowercase d took up the entire width of the line. Just like in a circle, diameter takes up the entire width of the circle. A lowercase r takes up half the width of the line, just like radius takes up half the width of the circle. Okay, so if I'm looking at number 1, I have my cylinder, and this is giving me just half the width of the circle, which means that that is our radius, and that's what we need in our formula. So our radius is 6 inches, and our height of our cylinder is 4. So the volume formula is pi r squared times height. So we're going to plug in the values. We're going to plug in 3.14 for pi. We're going to plug in 6 squared for radius, and we're going to plug in 4 for height. So when you calculate that, in your calculator, you can do 3.14 times 6 squared, or 6 times 6, times 4. And you're going to get 452.16, and that's going to be cubic inches. Now, where does the cubic inches come from? Remember what I said earlier, it's three-dimensional. So we have 3.14 for pi. We have, we're going to multiply that times 6 inches, times 6 inches, times 4 inches. Okay, so you have inches times inches times inches. Those are your three dimensions. Okay. All right, let's take a look at number 2. We have a cylinder, but this time the cylinder is on the side. All right, so remember, we need radius and we need height, and radius has to do with the circle. Okay, so if you look at the cylinder, the circle is on its side. and it is showing us the entire width of the circle. All right, so that is diameter, not radius. In order to find the radius, we need to cut that in half because I don't need all the way across, I need halfway across. So if all the way across the circle is 8 centimeters, then the radius is going to be 4 centimeters, and our height is 10. So let's just get in the habit of rewriting this formula every time, because the more you write it, the more it's going to become part of your memorization, okay? So let's go ahead and plug in those values. 3.14 times 4 squared times your height, which is 10 centimeters, okay? And 3.14 times 4 squared times 10 is equal to 502.4 centimeters to the third power. Okay. In class, I had everyone do number 3 on their own. So the first thing that I want you to do is I want you to tell me what the radius is. Okay. Again, this is showing you the entire width of the circle, which is diameter. You need half of that, so the radius is 5 foot, and the height is 2.5. Our formula again, that's a weird looking V. There we go. Pi r squared h 3.14, and our radius is 5 squared. Our height is 2.5. Take a second, calculate that, see what you get. Okay, if you plugged in those numbers correctly, you got 196.25 feet to the third power. Okay. Hopefully those are pretty straightforward. Those are pretty easy. The hardest thing that you have to do again is decipher, do you have diameter or do you have radius? And if you have diameter, you have to cut it in half. If you have radius, you have to do nothing but plug it in. All right. Now, I like these, but it's new. It says to leave an answer in terms of pi means that you're going to multiply everything except for pi. Okay, and we're simply going to leave the pi symbol in the solution. What that means is that we are not going to convert pi to 3.14. All right, so let's take a look at number 4. I have 10 millimeters that goes halfway across the circle, so that means that's my radius. So radius is 10. All right, and the height of the cylinder, if I were to put it on its base, would be 15.2 millimeters. Okay, so my formula would be pi times r squared, and in this case, we're leaving pi as pi. R squared would be 10 squared times the height of 15.2. Okay, so I am not converting pi to 3.14. I'm going to take 10 and square it, or 10 times 10. Multiply that times 15.2. That is going to give me 1,520 pi. That means I still have to multiply it times pi. And don't forget the units, which would be millimeters to the third power. Okay, it says for us to go ahead and finish calculating that out. So if I were to go ahead and take that 1,520 and multiply it times 3.14, it's going to give me 4,772.8 millimeters to the third power. On your homework today, it's going to ask you just to leave the answer in terms of pi. I think it's 2 questions that ask you to do that. If that pi symbol is not there, your answer is incorrect. So make sure that if it says to leave it in terms of pi, that you leave the pi there. Okay, let's take a look at number 5. What is the radius? Okay, I hope that you saw that if you have this that goes all the way across, you know that that's diameter, so you have to divide that 16 by 2. So your radius is 8, your height is 7. All right, so volume equals pi times 8 squared times 7. Okay, so 8 squared, hopefully you can do that in your head, that's 64, times 7 is 448 pi, and you're going to do inches to the third power. Okay, if you go ahead and multiply that times 3.14 to the nearest tenth, it's going to be 1,406.7 cubic inches. Okay, and then the last one that we have over here, radius, is exactly what they gave us, which is 1.5, and height is 4 yards. Okay, so if I did it in terms of pi, that's going to be pi times 1.5 squared times 4. And that is going to give me 9 pi cubic yards. Okay, I love just leaving things in terms of pi because it's so much easier. If I were to multiply that out, that's going to give me 28.3 cubic yards. Okay. All right. Now, the next part is everybody's favorite thing to do, which is word problems, right? All right, so I want to ease you into it. I don't think they do a good job of that. So I'm going to do 9 first, then 7, 8, and 10, okay? All right, so number 9, it says Leanne has a cylindrical water tank in her backyard, and it has a diameter of 3 meters, so I like to highlight that information, and a height of 2 meters, okay? What's the capacity, that's a word right there, of the water tank? All right, so first of all, Leanne has a cylindrical water tank, so I'm going to draw the water tank as best as I can because I like to be able to see it. Not very good drawing, but we'll pretend that it is. Okay, it has a diameter of 3 meters, so we know diameter goes the entire width of the circle, so that diameter is 3 meters and the height is 2 meters. Okay, so what does capacity mean? Capacity, if you look back at your notes, the very first part says capacity is just another word for volume. Okay, so we need that volume formula. I need to know what the radius is. The radius is going to be half of that diameter, and 3 divided by 2 is 1.5 meters, and our height is going to be 2 meters. All right, so very simple, pi r squared height. So that's going to be, now this doesn't say in terms of pi, so if it doesn't say in terms of pi, I do need to replace pi with 3.14. That's going to be 1.5 squared, and that's going to be 2 over here. Okay, and when I multiply that out, it's going to give me 14.13 meters to the third power. Almost forgot that. Okay, I like that word problem. That's a good one, but it's pretty straightforward. 7 and 8 get a little bit harder because it says the area of the base of a cylinder is 150 square inches. Okay, so area of the base, 150 square inches, and the volume is 1,050 cubic inches. We need to know what is the height of the cylinder. Okay, so my formula, V equals pi r squared h. Well, I know that this part right here is the area of the base. So they said the area of the base is 150. So I'm just going to replace that with 150. They said that the volume is 1,050. So I'm going to replace V with that. And I have to find height. So again, what did we do here when we had the area of the base? We multiplied pi times r squared times h. So what I'm doing is 150 times h is equal to 1,050. So what is the inverse operation, or the opposite of multiplying by 150? It is to divide by 150. And what you do on one side, you have to do on the other. Okay, that cancels out, leaving you just with h. And the other side leaves you with 7. So the height is 7 inches. Okay. Number 8 is another problem kind of like it. It's a little bit trickier. So let me see if I can zoom in. Okay. They tell us here that the volume is 942 cubic feet. They tell us what the height is, and they want us to find the radius. So let's write that formula down. Volume equals pi r squared H. Okay, so volume is 942. We already know what pi is. Times r squared times the height of 12. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to use that commutative property real quick, and I'm going to put my numbers next to each other. Okay, so I just rearranged there, and I'm going to multiply 3.14 times 12, and that's going to give me 37.68. R squared is equal to 942. Now this looks kind of like the previous problem, so we're going to divide each side by 37.68 to be able to get our answer. And it does give us a really nice whole number answer. It tells us that R squared is equal to 25. Okay. It says, the question asks, what is the radius of the cylinder? We do not have radius. We have radius squared. So I need to find radius, and the opposite of squaring something is to square root, not divide, square root. That is going to give us 5. So the radius is 5. Last question. Drew and Bo both have cylindrical water bottles. Drew's water bottle has a diameter of 6 inches and a height of 7. Bo's water bottle has a diameter of 4 inches and a height of 9 inches. Okay, whose water bottle holds more water, and how much? Okay, so I'm going to just split it into two. So I've got Drew over here, and I've got Bo over here. Okay, so Drew's water bottle has a diameter of 6 inches. I need to know radius. So radius is going to be half that. So Drew's radius is 3. The height is 7. Bo's water bottle has a diameter of 4, which means his radius is half that, which is 2. And the height is taller than Drew's at 9. So I'm going to do my formula. Volume equals pi r squared height. So 3.14 times 3 squared times 7. Okay, so the volume of Drew's water bottle is 197.82 cubic inches. Do the same with Bo, so 3.14 times 2 squared times 9. 3.14 times 2 squared times 9 gives me volume of 113.04 cubic inches. Okay, whose water bottle holds more water? If you said Drew, yay, you're a winner. Okay, and how much more? So what do? Do I add, subtract, multiply, or divide the two volumes? To find out how much more Drew has, I need to subtract. So I'm going to take 197.82 and I'm going to subtract 113.04. I'm going to get an answer of 84.78 cubic inches of water. Oops, I put a 2 over there. I meant a 3. All right, and that's how much more Drew's water bottle holds. All right, that's it, guys. If you have any questions, find either myself or Mrs. Bird. Have a good